Welcome, friends. We're delighted that you're joining us for this episode of Growing Bright Futures. It's a project that Building Bright Futures and Tree 11 Inc. have put together really to put a focus on the ways our community supports families with young children. And we are delighted today to have Katie McMurry, who is the director of the Aurora Preschool, here with us to talk about her work and her life and her dreams for what will happen for kids in the future. So welcome, Katie. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm just thinking maybe you could start with just doing a little bit of an orientation to Aurora for people that may not be familiar with it, what ages of children you have and so on.
Sure. So Aurora used to be Aurora School, and it was a K-8 school, and they ended up closing their doors in 2017, and I came in 2018. It's a small school sort of set on the Tam Trail network, so we're right in the woods. It's a great space, so it was perfect, lends itself beautifully to a preschool. So I started with 6 children in February of 2018, grew the next year, hired a full-time teacher, and then we enrolled 16 children. And now we have 5 teachers and we have 30 children.
Wow.
So we've certainly grown in the 2.5 years that we've been doing this. It's a nature-based preschool, and that really means that we play in nature a lot. It's not a didactic curriculum about nature facts. It's just more of really playing in nature. Children's own curiosity just takes us to special places. We explore just the TAM network, and that goes right in our own backyard, but that also we can cross, a street, and then we're in the Battelle Woods. We can take, before COVID, the Actor bus would get us to other sections of the TAM. So we spend a lot of time exploring, hiking, playing, having picnics, climbing trees, looking for ticks on our bodies to pick off, identifying poison ivy and such, and just really giving kids, large chunks of time where they can follow their own interests in nature.
I love it. And I just wanted to say we've been the Early Care and Learning Partnership we work with. Darla is on the board. We've been interviewing parents this year, and very consistently, people who have their children with you say how much they love it because you have an approach that is relaxed, individualized, and flexible. And I'm wondering if you could talk about those things for us.
Absolutely. I came prior to doing this preschool. This is the 3rd preschool I've opened. And my background is I'm a K-6 licensed teacher, and I also was a special educator. So, historically, I've spent time in classrooms with children, in a lot of certain, different classrooms and different expectations and different programs, which just gave me a really clear idea of what I didn't want my preschool to look like. And so I very intentionally don't go into a year saying this is our curriculum for a year. I very intentionally say I have, seasonally, that always lends itself. 3 to 5 year old, we're interested in what's happening around us. So that maple syrup is great and apples are lovely. But, I say to parents, but we're not going to do in fall, A is for apple and what are other A words, and we're going to trace A. And so it's really just more of creating a classroom in the environment as the 3rd teacher, is creating spaces and places that are beautiful, that have a lot of natural light, that have a lot of natural materials in them. And when you do that, kids' natural curiosity, their connection, their, meaning making, they're doing that themselves. And so I just look at the role of teacher as being really an observer, really getting to know kids. It's about relationships with children and their families. And then curriculum grows out from that. And when you really stay true, I found when I really stay true to that, because they're in past programs, there's needed to be a lot of pushing back. Sometimes as kids near kindergarten age, parents start really worrying about what do they need to know, what skills, what tools, what letters, what numbers, what do they really need to know? And I just really push back and say, kids naturally will get there. We have a very literacy rich environment. When we talk about reading, as much as those pre-reading skills are, or the reading the seasons and the reading the weather, and reading the environment and what's going on around you. So, balancing that these are important things, literacy and numbers and letters. But for kids, that really comes naturally. And then we support them and we help them to grow that. And for other kids, I've had kids who really have left, not, it's kind of unusual, but just saying, I'm not interested in letters at all. I can tell you how my name looks, and I'm interested if somebody has my letter or I see it, but I don't want to sound out words. They love to play games. They love to play rhyming games. They love to hear stories. They love book walks. They love to make their own pictures and dictate what goes with that. And so that's really our approach, is to support what's really naturally happening with the children. And when we do that and we step back and take away sort of our own objectives for what kids should know prior to going to kindergarten, they really tell us who they are, how they best learn, and how we can support them in that journey.
What's that been like? You said you went from 6 children to 30 and just you to 5 teachers, and all of you coordinating to be able to have that kind of responsive approach to individual kids. How do you manage that?
Um, we have a beautiful school. We have a beautiful indoor and outdoor space. So we manage it by really watching kids, by taking, I very intentionally am not part of Act 166 Universal Pre-K. When I've worked in other programs that were part of that, there's a lot of time that's going into things other than directly working with children. And so I think since that it takes that really big piece off the plate for our program, um, that we have more time to be able to do that. And when children have rest time, we meet as a staff, we talk about kids. Our meeting time is, usually 15 minutes nuts and bolts, 45 minutes talking about kids. What are we seeing? What are we noticing? How can we better support them in their play? So we spend a lot of time really watching kids and talking about kids.
I love it. So you mentioned that you were both a special educator and a classroom, K-12 classroom teacher. How did you get into this world to start with?
Great question. Because I started out in the early childhood. I was in the Peace Corps, and I came back from the Peace Corps and really didn't know what to do with myself. And I ended up in a daycare, and it was a daycare, a very typical daycare. And I really liked it. And I knew prior to that, I'm the 7th of 8 children. I've been around children a lot. So I always knew, I like working with children. From that daycare, I ended up being a nanny, and then going back and getting my master's in education. At the same time I was doing that, it was through St. Michael's. They have a program where you can also get a K-6 licensure. And so, I had thought I'd work with young kids, but there was just no money there in early childhood. So that's why I switched to K-6, and I was a 3rd grade teacher at Wheeler School in Burlington. It is a high needs school. And I loved it. And I moved from that school to the Baird School, which is actually a residential school for kids with emotional and social emotional challenges. And I worked there, had a baby while I was there. My child went to an in-home childcare, and when my daughter was turning 3, I was moving and thought, why don't I do this myself and just start a preschool? I'm in the field. I'll do it for 2 years. And we had just moved to a lovely house in Moncton that had a lot of land, and we had, pigs and chickens, and there were horses around us. And so it was sort of perfect. And I did that. And then, I thought about going back into the work field outside of my home. And the thought of returning to either one of those previous experiences just seemed overwhelming. I thought, I really am enjoying working with these young children. I really like this flow of my day. I like this more relaxed sort of rhythm and routines that are just more natural to a day with children. And so at that point, I started in East Middlebury. There was a small school that had been a family-run cooperative that was going to need to close its doors because of low enrollment. And it had a model that was really based in like 1970s, where parents were a huge parental component. And just as times change and parents are now needing to work 40 hours a week and not volunteer and take out the trash and clean the school and all of those things, the board of the East Middlebury Co-op went to Mary Johnson and said, would there be some way for you to help us with this transition? We're going to see if we're going to keep it a school or not. So Mary Johnson hired me and another woman. And we were, at that time, the other woman was, I think her title was director of administrative director, and I was like the curriculum director. And so it was really just throwing titles at, please get this school going and help us with the transition from that small parent cooperative to sort of this bigger, piece of Mary Johnson, the cog in the machine. And so we helped with that transition. I was there for 9 years, and then really knew that I wanted to do it on my own. And so that's how, and so now here I am in Aurora. And so
Wow.
long story long.
Interesting journey. So I think a lot of us thought of Aurora as being affiliated with St. Mary's, because I think the school used to be in the convent. Can you tell us about the transition from Aurora to being the school to being Aurora U, the preschool?
Yeah, so Aurora School closed, and this building was left empty, and they hired me to come in and get things going in this building. And so even the name Aurora School was changed to the Aurora School Incorporated. So even that name changed. So what they did is they said, now we're not going to be a school. We're just going to have the space. Can you come in and manage the space and get people to come in and do music classes and cooking classes and tutoring? And there was a chess club. I did a nature camp and science camps. There were after school programs. So I was coordinating a lot of pieces of things that were happening in this space. And then as a board, we just, tossed around the idea of it becoming a preschool. And they said, you've done this twice before. What do you think of that? And I said, I think that sounds challenging and wonderful and exciting. Give me 6 weeks and I can do that. And so really in 6 weeks, this went from just sort of empty space, or not so much empty, because there was all of those curriculum supplies from when it was a K through 8. So we had, sales here, things advertised through the Front Porch Forum. I donated a lot of things to Hope. I put out to the community, things that we had. So we got rid of a lot of stuff, was able to repurpose a lot of things. But really, it was sort of a blank slate. And, every toy, marker, paint bottle, paintbrush, again, was very intentionally, I had done it before. I also, Mary Johnson really has Reggio Emilia is their, one of their, frameworks.
Mhm.
And I had gone to Italy on a study tour, looking at their beautiful classrooms in Italy. And so getting a lot of ideas about how to make interest, how to use space in the best way possible. Um, and so that's another really special thing about Aurora is it was really, designed from the beginning with specifically 3 to 5 year olds in mind. So every toy we have, all the things we have are very geared, to the age group we work with.
I love it. I wish we were walking around with you to see your
Yes.
space someday. And
Yes.
can you talk to us a little bit? You mentioned that you back up on the Malt land, you use the Malt trails in the woods, Battelle Woods. What is that, a formal relationship or informal? How does that work?
Well, interestingly enough, the executive director of Malt, who took on that position maybe 4 years ago, she lived right like 5 houses down from this school and had a almost 3 year old. So she came here and just said, she really motivated me to start this in February. I was going to wait. And she said, start now, take my daughter, start with my daughter. I can get you the other people, make this happen. And she even, we went to the town, maybe the select board that you go to, the town planners, and Malt really wanted to move in here. So we really actually wanted to share this space with Malt and got denied that because of things that, because of how things are zoned, because of zoning.
Yeah.
So we have a great relationship, one, personally, and two, I know that the Aurora School and Malt historically go back years and years and years. So Susan Veen, who is currently the president of my board here, she was the director of Aurora School. So I know that the relationship between Aurora and Malt has evolved, but it goes back a long while.
Wow. And you had mentioned that you don't participate in Act 166, and that really frees you,
Yeah.
both in terms of time and requirements. Do you participate in the Child Care Financial Assistance Program, or are there any other ways to support parents financially?
Right now we have scholarships, and that is on a need basis. And no, we don't. So that's really what we have is our tuition. We try to keep it, with that in mind that they're not getting a tuition reduction or help. We try to keep it where we can. We are a not-for-profit business. But no, we have scholarships currently. We have, 3 families who receive scholarships.
And your background as a special educator, are you able to meet the needs of some children with special needs as well?
Right now, I know I'm the director teacher here, and the goal is not for me to be in the classroom for 40 hours a week. My other teachers are not special educators. So there are things that children could be successful here, and there's other things that I have to say, we really are not in a position to support, high special needs. Like I said, we have almost a special, kids need to have real stamina in the woods. We're out hiking a lot. So with that stamina, we need to have children who know how to take healthy risks. We need to have children who are going to be good listeners, and we don't have to worry about kids running off in the woods. We even in our indoor space, we have one main room with another main room off of that, and then 4 little rooms. So there's a whole lot of needing to be pretty independent, needing to, on the whole, that we have to, to keep kids safe, we need to know that they are, even more independent kind of than the average 3 to 5 year old.
Uh-huh. Although I was just thinking, I got to visit Reggio as well once, and we were asking teachers about this, and they said, because our program is totally individualized for each child, we're responding to the children, not having the children fit into the curriculum. We don't see at least the behavioral challenges, we don't see them as much as you would expect in a classroom where the kids have to sit here and do this. And it was, so it's interesting to me.
Yeah.
And Katie, we're going to run out of time. I would love to spend more time with you, but are there things you would like to talk about that I haven't asked yet?
No, I think I feel like I've covered, the program and the philosophy. No, it's just, I think I, I don't have any more to give to you. No, that's about all for me, but I
Well, we
appreciate
do
it.
we do usually ask people, so do you have some dreams for Aurora in the future, or dreams for the
Yes.
early childhood world?
Well, my dreams, and they're going to seem probably short-sighted right now. Really, my dreams, like everyone else, are just to get back to normal, to get back to baseline. Because what's lacking right now is, last year we had a yoga teacher come. So we had, yoga going on every Friday. We took the bus to Ilsley Library. So that was a really special time that we spent together. So I just want to get things back on track. And then once things are back on track, what I really want to get in is more things like people coming to us. So have VINs come in here, really access Middlebury College and professors. I have some of my children, are professors at Middlebury College. And again, to be able to access the things that are around here already. Because now it feels like things are great, and I don't think the children are noticing the difference at school. And what I'm hearing from parents is those things aren't happening, but that's fine because we are so happy our child is with their friends for this time. But for me, I know what it was, and I know the potential of where it could go. So to get back where we were, and then to offer more enrichment, from outside of the community and bringing those pieces inside.
Well, thank you. And I can understand now, talking with you, why parents are just so ecstatic when they have their kids with you. There's
Oh, that's so nice.
just
That's so
such
nice
a
to hear. Thank you for sharing that.
feeling of warmth.
Thank you.
And for those of you that are watching, I think Katie's given her contact information to Darla, so it will show up in a moment on the screen. So if you have more questions, you can get in touch with her directly. And we would also encourage anybody who's watching, if you have a program that you would like to share with the public, we work very closely with Middlebury Community Television, and they are just spectacular in helping people to record interviews like this, get messages out. So Katie, thank you
Okay.
very much, and hope to visit you in person someday.
All right. Thank you so much, Cheryl. Bye-bye.
Bye.